And we are live finally. This is Love on is on in the air. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty, but finally we are here. Hopefully you can watch us. Let me know actually if you're watching. I'm streaming live to you out there. And let me know in the comments wherever you're tuning in and watching us from if you're able to see me. Uh, I believe you do. Fingers crossed. Um, here I'll be honored to have you in today's show. I've been looking forward to this show. It's a special Valentine's Day, and allow me to wish to you happy Valentine's Day around the world, wherever you're watching us from. This show is powered by OneStream Live from Finland, where I'm based at. We love an all-in-one streaming solution that helps you to stream your content live in 45 plus social media platforms and the web. As I said, we are live now, February the 14th. So, since we are streaming live all over the world through a variety of platforms, allow me to say good morning, America, good afternoon, Europe, good late afternoon, Asia, and around the world, once more, happy Valentine's Day. What I would like to do in this show is to bring to you expert opinions, people who know all about love and relationships and friendships and happiness. And I want you to tune in and listen in. And you are the important guest, and you play a vital role in this show as well, where I will be asking you questions. So let me ask you already my first question. Wherever you're watching us from, whatever you're doing at the moment, take a time to write to me. How do you say I love you in your own language? So write to me. This is the audience question. How do you say I love you in your own language? Let me know. I will be seeing your comments in this special show. Love is in the air. And all the questions, of course, you're having to the experts. We are happy to have them. So the lineup of the experts that I have today with me is very impressive. These are people that are from literally all over the world. I'll start with a Finnish lady, a lady who is an expert in Finland, an occupational therapist, a relationship expert. Mrs. Lena Shivers will join me shortly here in the OneStream live studio. And then we go to the UK. We go to the south of London and Sussex. There we meet Geneviève Grasset, with hair being one of the leading top relationship coaches and matchmaking coaches in the United Kingdom. Then we will close the show with a living legend, Dr. Gary Chapman. Gary Chapman is an author, a pastor, a marriage counselor. What hasn't he done? I think he lived 5 lives in one. And he's the best-selling author of the book I have here next to me, The 5 Love Languages. If you're familiar with this, a lot of our experts are, and hopefully you'll get to know if you're not familiar with his work. So I'm Chryssa Skodra. I'm hosting the show, and recently I've been appointed one of OneStream Live's brand ambassador. I'm happy to bring to you insightful content using OneStream Live. So let me see. I have some messages here already in the chat. From Facebook, greetings from Greece, my home country. Greetings to all my friends in Greece tuning in and listening. Please let me know in the comments, how do you say I love you, and where are you from? Where are you from, and how do you say I love you in your native tongue? Now, without further ado, let me welcome in the studio my first guest. Here we have Mrs. Liina Shivers. Hello, Liina.
Hi, and hyvää ystävänpäivää to everyone.
Hyvä ystävänpäivä. This is how we say here in Finnish. Happy Valentine's Day, but how do we say, Liina, I love you in Finnish?
Minä rakastan sinua.
Minä rakastan sinua, and I have to say that Finnish language sounds so sexy. Allow me to say when a man says minä rakastan sinua, I think he means it, you know.
There is something very strong in that word.
It's something very powerful. So, yes. Liina, allow me to say a couple of words about you. I already said in introduction that you're an occupational therapist from Finland. You're a specialized sex therapist. You do a lot and you deal a lot with couples and relationships. You also specialize in stress and how exhaustion and fatigue can prevent people from enjoying a successful relationship or a meaningful relationship. So we will open up these topics today in our session. So I have lots to tell you. First of all, let's say for the people who are tuning in and listening that in Finland, today we're celebrating actually Friendship Day, right?
It can be called a Friendship Day, yes.
Yeah, so Ystävänpäivä is a friendship day, so people celebrating friendship. Let's start with this. How important is friendship in all relationships? And then I want you to talk to us about whether a romantic partner, whether our husband or boyfriend, should be first our friend before anything else, or how important is friendship in your view?
Well, I think when it comes to, Finland named as the happiest country in the world, and why are we so happy? I think social support was like number one thing that makes us happy. So I think it's safe to say that friendships are really important also to us Finns, as I think that they are for people all around the world. And when it comes to like romantic relationships, I think the best advice you can actually, give or take or think of is the person you choose or that you fancy, you wish to have a relationship with, is it the kind of person that you would wish to have as a friend? And if the answer is yes, then I think that this person has quite a lot of those qualities that you value as a person and you value in a friend. And that way, I think that can give you a very good base for building a romantic relationship. Yeah.
What you said that Finland is considered one of the happiest countries, and in many surveys in the World Happiness Report for many years, 6 years already in a row, it's been shown that it's the happiest place on earth. We both of us, we live here. You're a native Finn. What can Finland teach to others? How do Finnish people, because love can have a different connotation in different cultures. So what makes Finns happy, and what is the role that relationships have in the Finnish culture?
It's quite an interesting question to think about what makes us Finns happy, because when you look outside and all you see is darkness and rain, it's quite difficult as a Finnish person to understand why are we so happy. But I guess it might have to do with the social, connections we have, the financial stability that we have. Health is also considered to be very important. We have a very good healthcare system compared to many other countries. So I think these are the things that make us happy and also help us, achieve things that we wish from life. And of course, relationships are important, I think, in, all over the world. The person or the people you're with, they are the closest person to you, who you share your life with and you raise your family with. And loneliness is considered one of the top things that can cause, sadness or even death. So being left outside your relationship, being left outside the group of people that you're in, your community, that usually for people it meant death in, years back. And it also might mean it quite brutally even now. So I think in terms of social connections or social support, those are the things that make us happy.
And is it so? Is there a correlation? The stronger relationships you have, the happier you are. And if these are the reasons, as you said, about the society, as you're an expert in stress and you're also an expert on well-being and nutrition, so you see holistically people and their relationships. So not only the body, but the mind, the heart. And from this holistic perspective, how important it is, for instance, to enjoy nature, to eat well, to enjoy walks and talking to people. And so how would you say that as humans, our needs are met, or the variety of needs? We are complex creatures.
Yes, of course. We have lots of nature here in Finland, even here in Helsinki. So that's quite important to us Finns. We live in nature, so to say. And all those moments that where you can stop and enjoy your life, whatever it is. Usually, you can go to nature, you can go there with your partner, but you can also go there alone. And of course, alone time and being just connected to your own body is very important when it comes to happiness and also relationship happiness. And I think it's basically the thing that you need to find out yourself. What are the things that make you happy? And if, as long as you live according to your values and the time that you spend on the things you have chosen in your life, and if they correlate, so if the values and the time they meet, then I would say that makes the happiness, like the constant happiness in your life, or the mainstream of happiness. And then of course the little moments of joy and happiness in your life, like daily, those are also important.
You work very close with people from all walks of life, and you are yourself a mother. What is the one advice that, or let's say, if we start with the common issues, do you see a pattern? Are people struggling? Do they face similar struggles? Is there at the basis of their struggle something? And then how could you help them? Is there one advice that you see that once you give it, it unlocks a part of their brain and their understanding to pursue a better life, relationships, friendships? What do they struggle the most, and what is the best advice you see that it has helped a lot of people, from the ones that couples you're working with, singles also? Is there such a gist of knowledge that you can share with us?
Do you mean that what people struggle the most in their lives?
And how do you help them? How do you, if there's anything in common that you see a pattern emerging, and then you have one piece of advice that when they hear this, sort of it unlocks their brain in a way and helps them?
I wish I would know how to. How I would have that button that would just open up everything and solve
It's very
everybody's problem.
personalized then, your approach.
Well, I think the problems that people struggle with are basically with communication and like how to feel connected to other people, but also to oneself. And I think that the basic things in life are like, of course, the like how well you sleep, how you exercise, how you eat, and those, like, what is the mental health around that, how you are filling your life up to its potential, and of course the relationships there. And what people struggle with is like how to be heard, how to be seen, how to be understood, and why does that not happen. And that's why, with my clients, we talk a lot about just how or what makes you feel respected, what makes you feel valued, what do you need, in your relationship to be happy or to be met. And thinking about these things usually open up channels, because people don't necessarily know, like, pinpoint things that, okay, well, there is something in my relationship, there is something in my friendships, there is something in my life that I just constantly feel. I might feel exhausted, I might feel tired, I feel that, I'm there, I always need to listen to everybody, but nobody ever wants to listen to me. And that way, when you start thinking about these things, you might start understanding your own boundaries. And then when you start understanding your own boundaries, the next step there is for other people to start respecting your boundaries. And that way, I think this is kind of like if you get what I mean. So
So is it also, if I understand right, that first you need to love yourself, know who you are, how you feel loved, what kind of love you want to receive before you start loving others? Would that be a way? Is it, or can
I
you
think
love
it's
others if you're not loving yourself, loving your body, taking care of your body, looking at the issues you might having, whether it's stress or anxiety or other? So what do you think about this?
I think it's quite a lot to actually ask for people, like or to think that first you need to know how to love yourself to be able to love anyone or to feel loved by anyone. Because I think that the feeling of love or being loved, it borns in connections to other people. And you don't necessarily need to know how to love yourself like wholly and like just, oh, I just love myself so much, but you can learn that from the eyes of other people who look at you lovingly and who are willing to hear you out and understand you and who are patient and show you what it is to be loved. And that way you can also start to learn how to love yourself. So
And
it's
this is a process that is in your opinion, love is learned? Is it something we learn from our childhood? Is it something we see from how our parents or the adults around us demonstrated ways of communication and love and apologizing? Or is it something that comes innate in people, that we are who we are, but or are we products of our childhood?
Well, of course, it starts from the childhood, or it starts from, even when you're still in the belly of your mom,
Yeah.
what you hear, what you feel. Um, and after being born, the love kind of connects you to the world. It's in the hands of the caregivers, and how you're touched and how you're fed and how your feelings are or needs are being met since from the baby. And of course, we learn a lot also just by looking at other people, how your parents behave when they're together. Do they fight? Do they make up? How they show love to you, your siblings, towards each other. And that kind of becomes the inner model for us, that we also, kind of notice, not necessarily all of it, but like at least parts of it, we kind of show that same way in our grown-up or adult relationships. And of course, it always evolves and we bring something of our own, but the basis is there. And sometimes it is actually that we need to learn away from those models that we learn from our childhood, because they are something that has damaged us and is damaging people around us. But as long as we do it out of love, and respect, is good.
And sometimes it's harder to unlearn
Yeah.
and unlearn what has been engraved in you. But as you said, it's a process. So it doesn't mean, for everybody listening out there, so if I get this right, even though you're not fully 100% aware of yourself, and you can still be loved, you can still love, right? Everybody is on a journey, right?
Yes, that's right.
Great. So let us now pause here. Let's read some comments quickly because we're getting very deep here. So again, happy Valentine's Day, everybody, or happy Friendship Day as we celebrate here in Finland, in our nearby country of Estonia and other places around the world. Whatever you're celebrating, your friendship, your self-love, your marriage, we wish you all the best. Let me read the comments. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, says Shahzad. Then we have some flowers and hearts. And then I asked you, how is I love you in your language? So we have from Greece, Sarapo, my own mother tongue, Sarapo, and greetings. And love you all, hearts, congratulations. My old, an old friend or teacher here, Chryssa, Yasu Chryssa, hey, a professor in the UK, sends her regards by LinkedIn. Then we have from Argentina in Spanish, te amo, I love you. From Loida Navas, thank you. And yes, so keep writing to us. I posted another question below, audience question, and also I want Lena to give us your insights into that. What is the best love advice you ever received, or life advice? But if you think, is there anything someone told you, something you read and resonated with you, and it has kept it inside? Because I can say the one thing has resonated for me, if I'm allowed to say my personal advice, is leave after the first lie. To all of you out there, what do you think about that? Tell us also your best love advice you ever received. And now let's hear from the expert here, Lena Shivers, relationship expert. Is there anything, Lena, comes to mind?
So what is my advice that I
Yes.
think? Yes.
Something that someone told you or somewhere you read and it resonates with you. It's a very personal thing.
I just started to think that have I ever received a love advice?
It's hard to advise the expert.
But as an expert, I would say that, what I think is a very valuable advice, at least, I'm not sure if it's the best, is that how do you, like, every day in your relationship, because you choose your partner over and over again, right? Every day you choose this person to be with. And then when you think about it, the person that you are with should be the person that you treat the best in the whole wide world, because this is the person you choose to be with. And it also means that someday this person might not want to be here anymore if you don't treat them well. So what are the acts? What is the love language you show to your person every day to make them choose you, keep on choosing you, to make them want to be with you today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow?
So it's a long game.
It's a long game. Yes. And that way it doesn't have to, I'm not talking about like big grand gestures, but I'm talking about these little things you can do, touches, or how you look at them, or what do you tell them, what do you do, how do you listen, how are you present? And I know that Gary Chapman is talking about this love language like later on, so kind of like connecting this to that if you've ever thought about your love language, how do you show, and does your partner understand what you're showing? Do you need more words? Do you need more affirmation? What do you need to make the person feel that they are being loved?
Here we have some comments saying that I like the idea that we are on a journey, the journey of life. And then another comment, my advice, says Saba, is self-love is the best form of love. So we turn back to the self-love concept to some degree. Is there, Alina, anything else you would like top of your mind to share? Any words of wisdom with our viewers, with the listeners? Everybody, we are going live. This is a live show. Have a chance to ask any questions to Lena. to pick her brain. So let me know wherever you're tuning in and listening, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Let us know if you have a question to our expert. These ladies, Lina and my upcoming guest Genevieve, are sought after people. People pay to hear their advice. So you get a chance to pick their brains now for free. So don't miss this opportunity. Waiting for your questions to our experts. Let me read one more comment. Lina, my piece of advice: love yourself first. How can you love someone else if you don't love yourself? Says Juho Kallio from Finland. What do you think? Something you'd like to add?
Well, to some people, I think this is a very good question, and this is something that I have also thought about, a lot about myself also, like what is love and do you know how to show it? But I think that it also comes based on what is our experience of being loved. Because quite a lot of people feel that there are things about them that they don't love. Things about their body or, their mind or how they behave or it can be whatever. And there can be a lot of not respecting one enough. But then if you have the experience of someone loving you, and that can come from, far from the past even, but just as you have the memory of being loved, that will give you an example on how to love other people also. And I think that you are able to show that love, and it is your love, it's not that person's love, but it's your love that you show, and you can feel love even though you're not completely in love with yourself. And I'm sure that when you start to think about it, there are some things in every one of us that we like or love or appreciate. So it's not like I don't like myself, or I don't love myself at all. I just completely hate everything about me. That is quite rare. But you have I'm sure you understand, or I hope you understand what I mean, that, there are some parts of you that you like or you love, some parts you don't. And then when you have the experience of someone loving you and what it feels like to be loved, then you can show that same affection to someone else based on that experience.
Lina, personal question. You are a relationship expert. I will ask Genevieve the same question. They say that the people who teach cannot do. What do you think about relationship experts? Do relationship experts, can they do successful relationships? Are they successful in their relationship before they go on and advise and coach others?
Well, define success in relationship. What is success in relationships?
What does it mean to you?
Well, I think success in relationships can also mean that you know when to let go if it's not working anymore. But when, maybe more commonly when we think about relationships and what makes it successful is, of course, sticking to your partner and making a happy, relationship. And I think that, for us therapists, or as who we are as people, those are two different things. You can be a good therapist and then you don't need to have a relationship, and that can be your own choice also. Or then you can have just the perfect, relationship for you, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. We all need to work on our relationships. We all have fights. We all have rough patches that make us doubt. And so, yeah, I don't know. Did I answer the question?
I think you did. You did. I would like to thank you, Lina Shivers. Check out linashivers.fi for more information, everybody. If you're based in Finland, Lina is often with clients. She just was kind enough to appear on the show. She had a long day of work behind. So I'd like to thank you, Lina, so much for coming today on the show.
Thank you, Chryssa.
Thank you. And have a nice week and the rest of Valentine's Day.
You as well. It was nice seeing you and being with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lina. And let me now bring to the studio my next guest from the UK, Mrs. Geneviève Gresset. Bonjour.
Hello.
Hello, Geneviève Gresset. Thank you for waiting for us patiently here. You are one of the leading UK experts in relationship, matchmaker, coach, entrepreneur, media host. What don't you do? You're planning now filming a new show, right? A dating show, bringing dating back to the basics. We're eager to hear all the endeavors you're involved in. And you're also nicknamed, you have a funny nickname, the Nanny McPhee of the dating world. You have a high success rate in all the work you do, all your matchmaking. So tell us about all this. You'll tell us shortly. But on your website, relationship retreats, I put it soon below, you say that relationships are not taught, they are learned. I asked this question, if you heard us from the backstage, to my previous guest, Lena Shivers. So do you believe that from your personal and theoretical and personal experience, also theoretical background, that we are products of our childhood, or where do we learn these relationships? Is it from early on? And let's start from the beginning and head towards the present and the future.
I think relationships are something that evolve as we get older. We can have lots of learnings from our own experiences as relationships. Of course, our very first interpretation as to what relationships are about are by our caregivers, whoever's bringing us up, whoever is involved in our life in our early years has a big part to play on who we turn out to be later on. But that's not the whole story. You know, when you start dating, when you start having relationships of your own, even friendships, that is the foundation of what your thoughts are and what relationships are for you and how you interpret them. You know, some people who have bad relationships doesn't mean that they're going to go into something and be in a bad relationship again. You can change, you can grow, you can evolve and do different things. You can have therapy and be a better dater. You know, it doesn't mean if you've had a bad childhood, you're automatically going to have bad relationships.
You're doomed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes if you've had bad relationships or been around bad relationships and you know and you're aware that they were bad relationships, you will work harder to make relationships more successful for you. So I think labeling people because of their childhood is really wrong. Actually, it's very damaging. So it's one of those things that if you put the work in, you can correct behaviors if you want to. It's down to you at the end of the day.
Sure. When we talk about matchmaking and love and fighting the dream partner, a good partner, our ideal partner for us, is there some science behind building a successful relationship, making the right matchmaker? You're a professional matchmaker. Is it more, do you have any research? Are you based on psychology? Are you based on your gut feeling? From your 30 years of experience doing this, where do you draw your inspiration or your ideas of how do I now help people? How do I make my matches? How do I see what love languages those people are? Are they a good couple? Or how to help them? Where do you draw your, what is in your toolbox, basically? Tell us a little bit how you do the job that you're doing.
There's loads in my toolbox. I can't divulge everything because there's just so much. But yes, I'm properly trained. I'm qualified. I qualified through the Global Love Institute many years ago. I also did a lot of work with Dr. Terry Orbach and have worked with other professionals throughout my training and my life. A lot of it is intuitive. I can see energy and how people work and how they resonate together. And a lot of the time I use that intuition. But of course, there's so many studies that have been done now that that we can look at as to what makes a sustainable long-term relationship successful. And so you look for those qualities in people, or you work with people so that they can work on those qualities to make those strong, so that they have better, healthier, longer lasting relationships. So there's lots. There's obviously the psychology side of it. There's all the studies on relationships and intuition. It all comes together with experience and ongoing and consistent training as well. It's an investment. Matchmaker just doesn't, you've got people who call themselves matchmakers, but there's a big investment in being the best person that you can be to support people in the most precious journey of their life.
You have 30 plus years, you say yourself, even though you look lovely and very youthful and energetic.
Well, thank you. I am a grandmother.
So with your 30 years, 3 decades of experience, you've seen an evolution in the dating industry, in the matchmaking, in the relationships, in the society at large, right? There are certain trends from the technology, for instance, when we talk about the online dating, right? Which is, I think, in our society, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. How do you perceive this online world? Is it this kind of fast fashion, fast dating, swiping right and left, and feeling perhaps inadequate or just frustrated or paralyzed with the information or the abundance and the sort of inflation out there of the offering? How do you see this human-centric, face-to-face, old-school approach? So tell us a little bit about the evolution you've witnessed in the past 30 years you've been involved in this. And what do you see about the future? Where are we heading to?
There's a lot of questions in that.
A lot to unpack.
That's loads to unpack. Let's start at the very beginning. I mean, 35 years ago when I started my businesses, and I had something called the Secret Supper Club, is I would be handing out flyers at the station on a Friday night to anyone that I thought maybe single, didn't have a wedding ring on, or was just sort of, would smile at me. I'd hand them a leaflet. So it's changed a lot. We didn't have the internet then. The internet hadn't arrived. It was very much, meeting people face to face. We then had internet dating, where it was website-based internet dating, so a little bit like eHarmony and some of the others, who are still obviously going. It's obviously not as popular nowadays, but it is still very much there. Then you've got the apps. The apps came at a time when obviously phones became far more popular, and the apps, literally, we had an epidemic of apps. And the apps are good if you know what you're doing. And I say this to all of my clients: there is no point going on the apps if you haven't got resilience, if you're too vulnerable, and if you haven't got the confidence to ask the right questions and protect yourself. There's a lot of people online, unfortunately, that are there for the wrong reasons. They might not be single. They might want to use this as a reason to extort money. So apps have their place, but apps are only as good, you've got to remember, as the information people have put in there and the information that you have put in there. So it's really important to see the apps for what they are, as a tool to perhaps filter out people who might be local to you that you could have introductions with. Where do I think it's going? Well, I think we're going back to basics a little bit. I'm seeing a lot more people wanting to meet face to face. I've run events for 30 plus years. I'm still running events, and our new dating show that we're working on here at the moment, which is, I'm from the set right now, is all about back to basics dating, teaching people how to communicate, how to ask the right questions, and teaching them how to date authentically again. people are frightened to have conversations. We've become a nation, well, not just the UK, this is around the world. We've become tech wizards where all we do is we hide behind a keyboard, and we can make up whatever persona we want to be when we're hiding behind a keyboard. But when we're face to face, we're sat opposite someone and we are having to be our authentic, vulnerable self. Someone else shows up in that dating scenario, and that's what we're doing, is we're drawing people out so that they can have these real life interactions. I know in the States, I spent 4 years working in the States, well, 5 years working in the States, and people there, they love pickleball. Pickleball's become a big thing for singles to meet and connect over. So there are lots of different ways that people are connecting in real life. I think COVID was huge for online dating because it was one of the safest ways to meet someone during COVID was online and through the apps. But now people are tired. They've got dating fatigue, which is something that is a symptom of when you've been dating for too long and it owns you. So we are seeing a lot of people with dating fatigue.
How about because you talked about the around the world or different cultures, or what's happening in the UK, what's happening in the US from the other side of the pond. When we think about the world at large, there's a lot of cultures. Some are more conservative, parts of Asia, of Africa. In Europe, we have also our own distinct differences. So let's start first from Europe. You are yourself bicultural. You're British and French, right?
Yes.
So if we compare even two very close cultures, proximity or geographically also, we have the United Kingdom on the one hand, and then very close near it, we have France. What are the culture differences there? And then let's look at the world at large.
Oh, okay. Where do I start? I think England and English people are quite reserved. They're quite polite. They're a little bit more timid.
Like Finns. Finns are like that.
Yeah, a bit more timid, a little bit more anxious when it comes to dating, not as confident. Whereas there's that sort of je ne sais quoi, joie de vivre kind of thing going on in France, where they throw themselves into it, they embrace it. They're less risk averse in France when it comes to dating and relationships. I mean, this isn't labeling everybody. There's lots of different pockets around the world of different people that do different things. But generally, as we're looking at cultures, and I've gone and done some work in Asia as well, and obviously in the States, I've seen through my work as a relationship matchmaker and also a mentor. I train other matchmakers around the world as well. There is always a cultural difference, and you have to respect those cultural differences and be aware of those cultural differences when you're working across different cultures. But when we look at England, yes, there is a bit more of a reservedness and a bit more, I don't know, a bit polite. They're sometimes a bit too polite to say what they really think and really want. So that can hinder the dating process, and people can think, oh, it's a bit slow. It's a little bit clunky in England. So I mean, obviously not everyone's like that, but that is something that I've seen across all the events that I've run in London. There is that sort of holding back, that too polite, very Bridget Jones way of dating.
And tell us a little bit about the events you're organizing. You have also here the website relationshipreetreats.co.uk. Tell us a little bit how people can reach out to you, what kind of help you're offering. You sort of touched upon it. Tell us a little bit. You're multifaceted, workaholic. So tell us a little bit about the ways you can help people in real life or online. Tell us a little bit about what projects you're currently involved in.
So obviously I work with other matchmakers to support them in their businesses. I also look after certain clients. I don't have a big agency anymore because it's just too much to do. I work with some small pockets VIP clients that I support. I do a lot of coaching, an awful lot of coaching, and we've got retreats that we run, workshops, dating events. There's lots that we do, anything that's sort of for couples as well as for singles. You know, people, just because they're in a relationship doesn't mean that relationship's going, to their wildest dreams. A lot of people need to do work. When you're with someone and you're coupled up with someone, that's when the real work starts, actually. It's when often your vulnerability comes out, your anxieties come to play. So that's where people need to do more work if they've got things that they need to work on. You know, people think, oh, I'll get in a relationship and that will be the end of all my problems. No, that's often the beginning of all your problems, and it's not the other person, it's your own stuff that's coming out that you're having to deal with. And that's where the hard work starts.
What are the most common problems that couples are facing nowadays? From what you hear, what would people, what kind of advice they're seeking for? What kind of, is it the financials? Is it the communication? Is it, what is the top 3 issues people are having?
Well, I think the biggest problem is you don't invest enough time in your relationship. That's the biggest thing. It's that quality time. And I know Gary Chapman does a lot around quality time, and that is a big thing. And I think when you look at it, it's about spending the right time and doing nice things. You have to still date your partner. My other half and I, we love our date nights. We just love our date nights. It's so, and date days and day weekends and little getaways. It's so important to keep investing in your relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a few months old or a few years old or a few decades old. It's so important to keep that investment and keep it going. You've got to keep it real and be authentic with your partner. A lot of people don't know how to communicate. That's the other bit that's a huge problem, is people they second guess what someone's saying rather than asking them. So they think they can look at, oh, I know what she's thinking. Well, why don't you?
Or you have a fight in your head already before even, and then you burst out of something, and the other person.
Where's that come from? Hang on a minute. What's that all about? What's that all about? I see it sometimes when I've got couples sitting here in front of me, and one of them saying something, and I'm thinking, well, where did that come from? Well, that's what was said. No, you've implied that. You've put your spin on it, and you've put it onto that other person. Let's rewind and hear.
Let's be honest here, Genevieve. Are we as women the ones who do this? Are we the guilty ones? Because I must say for myself, I'm the one that I live in my head. I catastrophize. And of course, I'm very verbal and I do communicate, but I'm also, I don't know, are there traits between men and women? Do you see that the women are a sort of thing and then men, or it's really personal?
It's down to the person. I think expectations are different between men and women. I think men sometimes have very simplistic expectations, whereas women can overanalyze and overthink these things, so that they're wanting more, they're expecting more. So sometimes when our expectations don't match the reality, we think there's a problem. But sometimes it's our interpretation of those expectations that's the problem, or our expectations are completely unfounded. When your expectations are unrealistic and you set people up to fail, then that's when you have a lot of problems within that relationship as well. So you've got to keep it real.
Keeping it real, don't sabotage or self-sabotage, and set realistic expectations.
Yeah, I think people are very good at sabotaging relationships sometimes on what they think something should be rather than the reality of what it actually is.
How about being influenced by what their family is saying? At least in some cultures, it's very prevailing what their mother, their father, their brother, the society is saying, certain expectations. Of course, there are more collectivistic cultures and more individualistic cultures, but
yes.
Do you see that people try to live, it's not necessarily their expectations, but what others expect, or what they think, they assume that others expecting to, so that for their image and their ego? What is your take on this?
Oh, I have to deal with that a lot. An awful lot. I have mothers phoning me. I have sisters phoning me. I have friends phoning me saying, oh, they need this, when we were filming Married at First Sight. We spoke to family, we spoke to friends. There's a lot of influence. And at the end of the day, I say this to everybody, they are not in the relationship, you are. It's down to you. It's what you can deal with. And I always say to whoever is influencing or interfering, more often than not, it's not actually up to you. What happened in your relationship or what you've gone through is very different to what they're experiencing. So you have to be very respectful of the person who's in the relationship or trying to find the right relationship. You have to be very respectful of what they actually want and listen to them and be guided by them. I get lots of mothers phoning me. Lots of mothers, please find someone for my daughter, please find someone for my son. And I say, well, let them come to me. I'm not dealing with you. It's their relationship. It's not your relationship. It's about your son or your daughter. So I think, there's a lot of outside influence. There's also media attention. You should have this, and there's other experts that say things who aren't really equipped to be experts, but seem to think because they've got a good relationship, all of a sudden everyone needs to have a relationship like them. So we're seeing a lot of TikTok influencers that are giving such bad advice. It's shocking. And people think that they need to live up to that advice and that there's something wrong with their relationship.
And let me know also in the comments. I'll ask Genevieve her insights, but let us know also bad advice or lessons you learned the hard way. Let me know in the comments. And same question to Genevieve Gasset, relationship expert, matchmaker, coach extraordinaire. Tell a little bit if you have personally heard, or is there any piece of advice, any bad advice you hear from this, as you mentioned, TikTok influencers or wannabe coaches and experts in relationship? What is the one thing that we should close our ears and not listen to and fall for that trap?
Well, I think sometimes people always say, when's the right time to have sex with someone? That's probably the biggest one. You've got lots of experts going, oh, by the third date, if they've not tried to get you into bed, then there's a problem. They're not sexually attracted to you. Or, it's all about sex. It's all about attraction. If you're not attracted instantly, then it's never going to happen. One of the things we do know is attraction grows. And one of the other things that we know is there's never a right time to bring sex into the relationship. It could be 3 months, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 3 hours, whoever. There's no right or wrong. So I think it's one of those things. I do think personally, the longer you wait and the more you get to know each other, the stronger the connection between the two of you. And I do think that friendship is really important before you get into anything else. Actually, I think if you can't be friends, how can you? It's that great song, isn't it? If you can't be lovers, you can't be friends, or friends and lovers. I can't remember, but it's important.
And many people around the world have, perhaps from their own philosophical or religious beliefs, they have even more a different way of approaching this. And I think it's very valid as well that some people, due to their faith or religious belief, they're waiting until marriage. So we see these culture differences that play. So it's a big variety. But as you said, the longer the better, because you have to know the person and really commit, and it's a bonding of other level. Then let me ask you, Genevieve, you said that you appeared, or you've been in the British version of the Married at First Sight, the TV program, and tell us a little bit about your involvement there and your high success rate. Many of the people that you helped are parents already.
The 3 out of the 4 couples are still together 5 years later. They're all parents. It's been hailed the most successful episode that we worked on, the most successful series of the people that were coupled together. So yeah, we coached those people and we set them up to succeed. And I think that's why we had the success. We chose people that were very much marriage ready and wanted to commit to a proper relationship. And that's what's so important, actually, is you've got to be, for a show like that, you've got to be marriage material and ready and committed and understand what marriage is all about. It's not just going off on a date. It's committing and saying I do to a stranger. It's a huge undertaking. They're incredibly brave people to have been put forward for that.
How about you? I know that you are, as you mentioned yourself, you are, you have a husband, you have children, you have even grandchildren, right? Tell us about how do you feel yourself? Are you successful in your personal life, in your relationships? And are you trying to transmit some of the ways that you have managed to do things and be successful and satisfied and happy to others?
Well, I wasn't always happy. I'm in a second relationship. I was married for a long time. I had my children. My marriage didn't work, and I think, when you know something doesn't work, you walk away if it's unhealthy and it doesn't work for you. I worked with coaches. I worked with mentors. I went and did work on myself before I got into another relationship with my new partner. It's not quite my husband. So it's one of those things that it is a work in progress, and I can speak from what went wrong and what's gone right, and I can also talk about finding love again. I'm not just a textbook coach. I've gone through things myself. I've gone through a really challenging divorce, bringing up children on my own as well, and the struggles of finding love again as a middle-aged woman. It's not been easy. I've got my own podcast called Fizz and Tell, which explores that whole journey, because I think it's one of those things that it's not easy. Dating and relationships are not easy. They're not something that everyone comes with a handbook. We're not like a food mixer. Just press these buttons and this will work. It doesn't work like that. We're complex people, and we're going to respond and react to things differently. So yeah, listen, relationships take a lot of patience. They take a lot of commitment. They take a lot of energy, and you've got to have a lot of resilience when you're going into dating and relationships as well.
And I think even marriage or picking up, being with someone, selecting a partner is such a lottery. To be honest, you might be the best person and you think that you can read people and you think you know the person, and things might turn the other way for one reason or another. So to the people listening out there and they're struggling in their life today, love life, relationship wise, how could they turn the things around? Because as you said, from failure, right, from negative experiences, from even traumatic experiences, the only way is up, perhaps, and then maybe leading to a better future. So if somebody's listening now, how can they turn their struggle currently into something more prosperous and more promising in the near future? What advice you have for them?
Educate yourself, get the right help, listen to the right people. Not all advice is good advice. So also trust your instinct. I think a lot of people forget about trusting their instinct on something like this. So it's really important that you trust your instincts when it comes to how you feel. How do you really feel? You're the only person who knows whether something's right or wrong for you. And reach out to get the right help, because sometimes it can be really hard to leave a relationship if it's not healthy, especially if you've got children, if you feel that there's a lot of people with families intertwined. Sometimes it feels quite overwhelming to leave something that's something perhaps you've only known for many years. So
it's become a habit, and you're afraid to see what's out there. Will I make it? Will I survive? What does it mean? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what does actually being alone look like for me? So these are all things that that unknown is always scary for most people. It really is. But actually being brave and if you know you're stepping away from something that's not right for you, it gives you the opportunity to get yourself in the right space so that you can find the right person for you, if that's what you choose to do. There's lots of people that are very happy staying single and being single. There is nothing wrong with that at all. But whatever's right for you, you have to be true to yourself.
Right. Be true to yourself and educate yourself. I think these are the messages we give. Is there, Genevieve, anything else in your mind you'd like to share with our audience to close with your words of wisdom or wishes? And before we go, I want you absolutely to tell us about your love language to make a nice transition to the next session where Dr. Gary Chapman will open up about the love languages out there.
Well, I love Gary's work with the love languages. It as a relationship coach, it helps. It's a wonderful tool that we can use to talk to people about love languages. It's the love languages obviously is just one level that we look at, but I think one of the things I always teach people to do is to be mindful of all the love languages and to see how you resonate with all of them. When I've done the testing, and I did the testing recently a couple of days ago before I knew Gary was going to be on this afterwards. So I'm very equal actually in quality time, words of affirmation, and acts of service, closely followed by physical touch. And way down, I think it was a 1, if not a 0, was gifts, giving of gifts. So my love languages are pretty equal, and I think that's because I've done a lot of work on myself. So it's not just one way. I give and receive love.
Excellent. One more comment we have here from LinkedIn. Sebastian says, the most important relationship is with yourself. Until you learn to love yourself completely and entirely, you always struggle with external relationships. Lena was on the fence regarding this statement. What is your take on this?
Well, I think, listen, people love themselves and they love other people very differently. So I think it is a very on the fence comment. And I heard what Lena said, and part of me agrees. And part of me thinks you attract what you give off in life. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I've watched it play out for 54 years of my life. So I think what's really important is you should know yourself. I think loving yourself takes lots of different connotations. Not everyone has the capacity to love themselves, but they have the capacity to be a good partner. So I think it's one of those things that it's not always about loving yourself, but you have to be mindful of who you are and what you're giving off, because what you give off, you attract. So that's where I think it's important. I think you have to work on yourself and know yourself. You have to know yourself pretty well before you can give yourself to somebody else. I think that's really important as well.
And you radiate. So I see you there in front of your natural light and you're radiating. So you give this very, I think you're very lovable. So I would like to thank you, Genevieve Chryssa, for your positivity and insights here. I want to ask you my last question. How are you spending tonight with your partner? Do you have any special plans?
Yes, we do. He's making dinner. So he's making dinner and making it all very romantic and lovely. So we're just going to have a really nice, quiet night in. He's a great cook. So we're working tomorrow. We've both got busy weekends with work and filming this weekend as well. So there's a lot going on. So
business partner and life partner and a great cook.
What more can a girl wish for?
Of course, he's lucky to have you, and you're lucky to have him. I would like to thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
For more information, reach out to Genevieve Chryssa on LinkedIn, right? Are you open to have people connect with you?
Absolutely. More than happy to hear from people. More than happy to help.
Excellent. And if you're looking for relationship support for other couples, if you're in a relationship or singles, you can visit relationshipretreats.co.uk. So Genevieve is behind the website, so she'll be there to guide you correctly. So Genevieve, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was Genevieve Gresset, one of the leading experts in relationship from the UK. And now in this part of the show, I have received some messages that I absolutely have to read here. There's so many. Allow me to go quickly. Thank you for submitting your messages. Joe says about his partner, Jill. She's been ill with cancer and following 3 major operations in 2 years and chemotherapy and a mastectomy, she's recovering, and she has been an absolute inspiration to so many. I want her to understand how strong she is, how much she's admired and inspires many others and myself. And this is a message from Joe and his partner Jill. And 3 furries, referring to their dogs, BOD, Luna, and Cassie, all love her for being her. So all the best to Jill. What a fighter. Alex says, happy Valentine's Day, babe. Every moment with you is a page from a fairy tale. Samantha says, happy birthday, babe. Thank you for being my safe place, my best friend, and the reason I smile every day. You're my greatest adventure. Sophie saying happy Valentine's Day to my ride or die, my soulmate, a soul sister, MJ, my built-in therapist. Who needs romance when we have each other? Fallon says happy Valentine's Day to the one person whose presence makes my life worth it. Couldn't imagine a day without you. Some people get chocolates, some people get flowers, says Emma. I get peace, success, and the luxury of not settling for mediocrity. Happy Valentine's Day to me, says Emma. Happy Valentine's Day, Emma. Erin is saying, happy Valentine's Day, Sid. You may be gone, but your love is still with me every day. Oh, happy Valentine's Day to Erin as well. Ifra, I say, Baba, you always be my first superhero and the guy who set the standard way too high. Happy Valentine's Day to the best man I know. Love you endlessly. Probably her father. Fathers tend to do that, setting the bar quite high, or at least some of them. Mrs. Ackerman says, A&M, thank you for everything you do. Happy Valentine's Day. Faizan is saying, happy Valentine's Day, my love. You are my calm, my chaos, and my favorite kind of forever. Aniqua is saying, I've tried so many times to think of a new way to say it, but it's still, I love you. Happy Valentine's Day, Umair. Sarah is saying, are you a magician? Because every time I look at you, my wallet disappears. Okay, that doesn't sound so good, but thank you, Sarah, for your comment. Roma is saying, happy Valentine's Day. I was going to get you something amazing, but then I remembered you already have me. Okay, Alexa, says you are the algorithm to my heart's purpose. Zara is saying, you're the glitch in my matrix that I never want to fix. Happy Valentine's Day, love, from Zara. Ahaya is saying, our love story is my favorite notification. Love, love, and lots of love. And I hear some bling, bling, bling messages going on. So this is live. Let me know in the comments if you have any shout outs to your loved ones. So I'm happy to take your comments here in and bring them on air. This is a special Valentine's Day brought to you by OneStream Live, the all-in-one platform where you can stream simply from your browser, as I'm doing right now. I'm using my laptop here in front of me. I'm multi-streaming this content live to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it. So thank you for tuning in and listening to this special show. We just had the experts, 2 lovely ladies. So let me now share with you. Let me see if I have any other comments. I'm just hearing some ting, ting, ting notifications all the time. Sebastian is saying about his comments. It would be great to have the comments on the screen. I'm reading them here. I see them, Sebastian, as they come by, but that's a good feedback. So thank you for your input. So we are here in the extended version of Valentine's Day. Special Love is on the air, in the air. And I'm Chryssa Skodra. Thank you for tuning in and listening. I will leave you with the last part of our show, the legendary Gary Chapman, the man behind the 5 love languages. This is a best-selling book. It has sold 20+ million copies worldwide. You can find it in more than 50 languages. My copy here is in English. I know it's translated in Finnish, plus so many other languages around the world. Dr. Gary Chapman talks about the 5 love languages people have: words of affirmation, receiving gifts, acts of service, physical touch, and quality time. I want you to go to the website shown below there, 5lovelanguages.com, go to quizzes and take the first quiz. It's available both in English and in Spanish. Take it with a few questions. You will find out what is your primary love language. Of course, people, we are multimodal, so we have many languages. My top language is quality time. I love to spend quality time with my partner, with my child, with my friends. I don't care so much about the gifts, but I care that you spend your undivided attention and quality time with me. Let me know in the comments, what is your love language? Just go now to the website, 5lovelanguages.com, take the quiz and let us know. And we will hear now Dr. Gary Chapman. And we are live. Here we are again with a special Valentine's Day episode powered by OneStream Live. I'm Chryssa Skodra, and today I have the great pleasure to have with me in the studio a legendary man, a living legend, Dr. Gary Chapman. Thank you, Dr. Chapman, for joining me.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be with you.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm a big fan. Here I am. I wish you were here so you can sign my own book, my copy of the 5 love languages. So for those that are not familiar, you are, as I said, a living legend. You're a best-selling author. You are a speaker on the international circuit. You travel around the world. You have been a counselor, marriage counselor for many decades. And you're also a pastor, an anthropologist. What haven't you done? I think you lived 5 lives in one.
Well, I have had a very varied life through the years, to be very honest. A long educational journey in various subjects. But for the last many years, I've focused on marriage and family counseling because I have a deep heart to help couples have the kind of marriage they wanted to have when they got married: loving, supportive, caring relationships. So it's been very rewarding to see how the love language, which you mentioned, for example, has helped so many couples all over the world learn how to meet each other's emotional need for love.
But before we go there, we will open another topic. I have a lot of questions to ask you. I would like to start to go back in time when little Gary Chapman was born and raised, because I do believe that we are products of our childhood to some extent. What do you think about this? Are you a product of your childhood? What were the circumstances and the environment you grew up in? Was your parents' love languages what you were exposed and inherited to you?
Well, I grew up in a very supportive family, a very loving family. We lived in a very small town of about 2,000 people. My mother and my father worked in the local mill. It was a textile mill. It made towels and sheets and pillowcases. It was a very simple life. We had a garden out behind our house. So I learned early on, when I got old enough, how to plant potatoes and green beans and all of those things. So I learned the work ethic growing up, because Dad always had my sister and I helping, depending on our age, but helping with the garden and helping in the house and washing dishes and vacuuming floors and all those kind of things. So yeah, it was a very positive influence in which I grew up. So I've been very grateful for that through the years.
I must say that before coming into the OneStream live studio to meet you, the gut feeling I had, or what I thought of you, or in my mind, is exactly what you said. You strike me as a very hardworking man. As I said in my introduction, you've lived 5 lives in one, and I still think you have a legacy still to contribute to your legacy. But tell me a little bit about, so you had a great childhood, hard work, hands-on, doing chores, being there in the nature, helping your family. But what was then in your academic life, or what you decided to study, and how that shaped your understanding and where we are today, and the work you have done ever since? Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we come to that eureka moment in your professional life when the 5 love languages strike you.
Yeah. Well, at the age of 17, when I finished high school, I left my little town in North Carolina and went to the city of Chicago to attend Moody Bible Institute, because I had the sense that God perhaps was leading me to be a pastor. And it was only a 3-year school. There was no degree. But when I finished there, I went to Wheaton College, which is just outside Chicago, and finished my degree. I majored in cultural anthropology, because I was interested not only in America, but in understanding the world and cultures and how they're organized and all of that. So it kind of broadened my vision, when I did that. Of course, you can imagine going to the city of Chicago after living in a town of 2,000. My world was greatly
culture shock.
Yes. But then I went on and did a master's degree in Christian education, and then later did a PhD. And taught in a college for 3 years, and loved teaching in college, loved working with college students. But then I was invited to come to a large church and start a college ministry in the church. And so there's 3 universities in our city. So I started that and had an incredible 10 years working with college students. Every Friday night for 10 years, we had open house at our house for college students. And our whole program was Q&A, whatever you want to ask. Not that I was the answer man, but I led the discussion. And then I was also directing the educational program in this large church, with all classes on all kinds of topics, and selecting leaders and helping leaders. So I've been involved in education as well as counseling. But then as I got a little older, counseling became a major part of my role. And so I've done that for many, many years now. And basically all of my books are an overflow of my counseling ministry.
So you are, seems to me that you're a very generous man. Everybody who is involved in education, I think they want to bring back to the society, to the younger generation, their wisdom. Remind me, what is your love language? Is it words of affirmation or?
Yes, words of affirmation is my primary love language. Now, in the early days, I didn't know anything about love languages.
And you said about Q&A. I want the people to go now to the 5lovelanguages.com. You see below the website, a great website with a lot of resources, and there's a lot of quizzes. So go to quizzes. You find several quizzes, but the first one you will see, it says, what's your love language? So you can take the free quiz and you get the result. What is your love language? Let us know in the comments below, wherever you're watching us from, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. I'm interested and curious to know what's your love language. So Dr. Chapman, you were saying that earlier you didn't know anything about the love languages, right? But what was that eureka moment after discussing with the students, after later on doing the marriage counseling, and you've been involved in different seminars? What was that year or that moment that you saw a pattern emerging and you connected the dots?
Well, it was many years ago when it dawned on me that what makes one person feel loved does not make another person feel loved. And what happened was a couple came in to see me. I did not know them. I'd never met them. We started talking, and the wife said, Dr. Chapman, we're cordial to each other. We don't argue, and we don't have any money problems. And she mentioned 2 or 3 more positive things. But she said, the problem is, I just don't feel any love coming from him. We're like roommates living in the same house. He does his thing, I do my thing. And I feel empty inside. And I just don't know how much longer I can go on like this. Well, I looked at her husband, and he said, I don't understand her. I do everything I can to show her that I love her. And I said, well, what do you do? He said, well, I get home from work before she does. So I start the evening meal. Sometimes I have it ready when she gets home. If not, she'll help me. We eat, and I wash the dishes every night. And then on Thursday, I vacuum the floors. On Saturday, I wash the car, I mow the grass, I help her with the laundry, and he went on. And I was, first of all, beginning to wonder, what does this woman do? It sounded like he was doing everything. And he said, I do all of that. And she says she doesn't feel loved. He said, I don't know anything else I could do. I looked back at her, and she started crying. And she said, he's right. He's a hard-working man. But we don't ever talk. We haven't talked in 20 years. He's always mowing the grass, washing the dishes, vacuuming the floors. He's always doing something. And I realized here was a sincere husband who was doing everything he knew to do to show his wife that he loves her, and a wife who did not get it emotionally. And after that, I had similar stories over and over in my office. And I thought, there's got to be a reason for this. There's got to be a pattern to this. So what I did, I read several years of notes that I made when I was counseling and asked myself the question, when someone said, I feel like my spouse doesn't love me, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And their answers fell into 5 categories. And I later called them the 5 love languages and started using that concept in my counseling. That if you want her to feel loved, you've got to learn how to speak her love language. If you want him to feel loved, you've got to learn to speak his language. So that's the way it came. And I started using it in teachings in classes. It was probably 5 years later that I thought, if I could put this concept in a book and write it in the language of the common person, leave out psychological terms that many people wouldn't understand, maybe I could help a lot of couples that I would never have time to see in my office. Of course, little did I know, as you mentioned earlier, it's sold now over 20 million copies and been published in over 50 languages around the world.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's amazing.
Tell us a little bit in short. We sort of given some hints. I could tell from the story, perhaps if you could summarize a little bit the 5 languages, and then a bonus question. With your experience, knowing me for 12 minutes already now, can you guess my love language? Can you see through people?
All right. The short answer to that question is no. But I will give you overview.
So let's
of the
start with the
five
5 languages first, and then I want to pick your brains and see
right.
with your experience how well you can see through me.
Okay, and these are in no particular order of importance. Okay, but one of the love languages is words of affirmation, which you mentioned earlier. Such just positive statements. You look nice in that outfit. I appreciate what you did. You know, one of the things I like about you, it's just words that affirm the other person. Sometimes there's an ancient Hebrew proverb that says life and death is in the power of the tongue. We can kill people by the way we talk to them, or we can give them life. So words of affirmation. And then acts of service, doing something for the other person that you know they would like for you to do. That's the language the gentleman I just talked about was speaking. He was doing all these things for his wife. He was loving her. It just that wasn't her love language. And so acts of service. And then there's gifts. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. I mentioned my background in cultural anthropology. We've never found a culture where gift giving is not an expression of love. And the gift doesn't have to be expensive. We've always said it's the thought that counts. You were thinking about me, and you got.
Yes, I was in that store and I saw this little thing and it reminded me of that feeling I had in thinking of you, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then there's quality time. Giving the other person your undivided attention. I do not mean sitting on the couch watching television. Someone else has your attention. TV is off, computer is down, we're not answering our phone, we're giving each other our undivided attention. The lady who said, we don't ever talk, this was her language. She didn't mean they didn't discuss logistics, who's going to take the kids to school, which restaurant you want to go to. She didn't mean that. She meant we don't ever sit down and look at each other and give each other our undivided attention and talk about life together. She was begging for quality time. And then number 5 is physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. That's why we pick up babies, hold them, kiss them, and cuddle them. Long before that baby understands the meaning of the word love, the baby's feeling love. So those are the 5. And of course, as we mentioned, each of us has a primary love language. One of these 5 is more important than the other 4. Now, we won't turn away any one of them. All of them are fine. But if we don't receive love in our primary language, we will not feel loved, even though the person is speaking some of the other languages.
So, what is your quick guess about me? What's my love language, Dr. Chapman?
Well, you told me that you're a teacher. So I tend to think toward acts of service, but I'm not sure.
Acts of service, quality time and acts of service, they're very close.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
You're
and
very
sometimes,
right.
Yeah, and sometimes the primary and the secondary can be very close.
They're very close. Good. Excellent. So cultural anthropology, that's your background. You're also a man of faith. You have a diverse background. You speak with a lot of people from your community and globally. When it comes to the love languages in a global context, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Gerd Hofstede, where he talks about national cultures and describing national cultures as a mental software, that we come with this mental software which our family and our national culture has installed in us. So if we come with this metaphor of a software, so if we have that primary language, love language, what is then the intersection or the influence of the mental software of our culture? Do you see differences or similarities, as you said, regarding gift giving? It's a global love language to some degree. Everybody appreciates it more or less, and so on. When it comes to the other languages, are there similarities or differences internationally? What is your take on this?
Yes, to be very honest with you, I was really, really surprised when the book started going to other cultures. With my background in cultural anthropology, I was aware of cultural differences. In fact, the first publisher that came to get permission was the Spanish. And I said to my publisher, I don't know if this works in Spanish culture. I discovered this, in kind of middle America. And they said, well, they have read the book and they want to publish it. I said, well, okay, so we did. It became their bestseller. And then it won, as I said, many, many other countries. But here's what I think how the culture does impact. Within each of these languages, there are many dialects. That is, different ways to express these languages. Like, in words of affirmation, there's words of praise, there's words of encouragement, different kind of words that affirm. And I think the dialects are impacted by the culture. For example, physical touch. There are cultures where if two men meet on the street and they happen to be friends, they'll kiss each other on the cheek. Well, we don't do that in my culture, okay? We might give a handshake, or we might give a high five.
A tap on the shoulder.
A tap on the shoulder, that's right. So the dialects of the languages, I think, will be influenced by the culture. And I'm sure they went in the translation of them, they note that, and they indicate that, because it has to be fitted to the culture. But I think that's why, but it does seem to me now, and I wouldn't have thought this earlier, that these 5 languages tend to be rather fundamental to human nature. That need to feel love, these 5 categories seem to be the primary languages of communicating love on the emotional level to people, though the dialects will be different in each culture.
Mm-hmm. I asked about the culture, the mental software, the national culture influence, and you spoke about the dialect. So we have the 5 primary languages, and of course, people are multimodal. They have primary and secondary and other. If you do the quiz, and actually, the quiz, if you go to 5languages.com, it's also in Spanish. Dr. Chapman mentioned the book is a best-selling book in Spain as well, and in Spanish cultures. So you can do the quiz in Spanish and in English. Check it out. How about the metaphor of the love tank? You talk in your book about filling each other's or our lovers or our partner's love tank and ours.
Yeah.
How does this work in practice?
Yeah, I just use that, as you say, as a metaphor. I like the picture, for example, inside every child, there's an emotional love tank. And if the love tank is full, that is, the child genuinely feels loved by the parents, the child tends to grow up emotionally healthy. If the child does not feel loved, they have an empty love tank. It's like a gasoline tank in a car. If it's full, you can drive a long ways. If it's empty, you're not going anywhere. So if they have an empty love tank, they are likely to grow up with many internal emotional struggles. And often in the teenage years, they will go looking for love, many times in all the wrong places. But I believe that adults also have an emotional love tank. And if you're married, the person you would most like to love you is your spouse. In fact, if you feel loved by your spouse, life is beautiful. But if the love tank is empty and you feel like they don't love me, they wish they weren't married to me, life can begin to look pretty dark. And just as much of the misbehavior of children grows out of an empty love tank, much of the misbehavior of adults grows out of an empty love tank. So what the 5 love languages does, it's help you to learn how to effectively fill the love tank of the other person. And in a marriage, that's ideal. That's what we want. We're each speaking each other's language. Our love tank is full. We're secure in our love for each other. And then all the rest of life is much easier to process if that need is met.
And as you mentioned, in Greece, we say that if you don't let your kids lick love from the spoon, they would lick it from the knife. As you said. Yeah, so if you don't spoon feed love to your children abundantly, they would lick it from the knife. So that's dangerous. Yeah. And as you said, also there are resources. You have written other books other than the first book that was the 5 love languages. Here, the The Secret to Love That Lasts, you went on to write about the love languages of children, the love languages of teenagers, the love languages of men. Would you like to highlight, you sort of touched upon regarding children, what are the little changes you made in the other editions, in the other books you have written?
Yeah, well, in the 5 love languages of children, of course, I wrote it for parents of children. And I wrote it with my co-author, who was a psychiatrist who had spent 20 years working with children. And we teamed up and wrote that. It's the same 5 love languages, but it's trying to communicate to parents, you know, what makes one child feel loved will not necessarily make another child feel loved. And so if you discover their primary language, you give them heavy doses of the primary. But I also encourage parents in that book, you don't speak only their primary language. You want to speak all 5 languages, because we would like for that child to learn that there are different ways to be loved. And we'd like for them to grow up being able to speak those love languages, because many people get to adulthood and they did not receive some of these languages growing up, and they don't know how to speak them. Now, the good news is they can learn. If you didn't receive words of affirmation, if all you ever heard were critical words, then it's hard for you as an adult to know how to say positive words. So that's basically the idea. And I do share in the book on children that you can really determine a child's primary language by the time they're 4 years old, by just observing their behavior. How do they relate to you and to others? For example, my son's language is physical touch. When he was that age, I would come home from work. He would run to the door, grab my legs, and climb on me every day. He's touching me because he wants to be touched. My daughter never did that. At that age, she would say, "Daddy, come into my room. I want to show you something." She wanted my undivided attention. She wanted quality time. So it's there very early in a child's life. Now, I don't know, whether it's nature or nurture as to where it comes from, but I do know it's there very early in a child's life. So if a parent can understand that, it will also help them at the point of discipline the child. If you know the child's primary love language and you have to discipline them for disobeying, if you wrap that discipline in their love language, and you say, if words is their language, you say, honey, I really, really love you. I'm so proud of you. Most of the time you keep the rules, but this time you broke the rule. So you know what we have to do. So you have to, whatever you think was the proper thing to discipline them. But then you say, look, I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you. That child receives the discipline. They understand it, and they feel loved. But if you just let your emotions control you, and you say, I told you not to do that. Now, and the child's thinking, oh man, I do one thing, I break one rule, and I get yelled at, So it helps them know how to discipline in a more positive way with their children.
Very interesting. Dr. Chapman, today, if you were to rewrite your books again, or the 5 love languages, is there anything else? Of course, you've been now you have books and workbooks and apps and websites and podcasts, but do you feel that it's a thorough piece of work, or is it still something in your mind, the back of your mind, something you feel that you would like to do differently, or you learn something new after so many years? Or do you feel that it's indeed a great piece of work that you're proud of leaving it as your legacy? Would you rewrite it would you add a new language? Would you change something?
Well, I was never dogmatic to say there's only 5 love languages. I've been open, and through the years I've been open. And people have suggested things. Like one man said to me, Dr. Chapman, there's a 6th love language. I said, what is it? He said, chocolate. I said, well, if they bought it, it's a gift. If they made it, it's an act of service. And other people have suggested, various things like that. So far, whatever people have suggested fit, in my mind, they fit as a dialect in one of the other 5 languages. I'm still not dogmatic, But no, I do not have a sixth love language that I would say, if I were going to do it again, I would add this. I feel stronger now that these are pretty fundamental than I did when I wrote the book. But as I said, I was never dogmatic to say, there's only six. If another one comes, I would I would be open to it. Okay.
So to stay tuned, but I think it's a great piece of work, and I think you've done a great job. And I think with your experience and your insights, and I think that talking to a lot of people, spoken probably to tens of thousands of people over the years. So I think their feedback reassure you that indeed this is I'm onto something here, right? Is that feedback that you're getting from the people you meet still? What do they say about the impact that your work has had in their daily lives?
I do a lot of marriage conferences, and every time I do, I will have people come up at the break times and say to me, Dr. Chapman, we just wanted to share with you, that book saved our marriage 15 years ago or 20 years ago. The book's been out 32 years now. But they're just sharing with me that book saved their marriage. They say, we were at a place where we just weren't getting along. We were arguing with each other. We felt like we weren't compatible. And we read that book and the lights came on. And we realized how we had been missing each other emotionally. And we realized that, we were speaking a language, but it wasn't the right language for the other person. And so we started speaking their language. The love tank filled up. It literally saved our marriage. And that's why we have shared the book with our brothers and our sisters. It's kind of gone word of mouth all over the world. When a couple reads it and they get the picture and they take the quiz and learn each other's language and then choose to speak it, it absolutely makes a huge difference in their life. So the feedback has been very, very encouraging through the years.
You're a hardworking man. I don't dare to say workaholic. I don't know you so well, but hard work ethic, definitely I can see. What projects you have ongoing, and are we expected to see anything else, something new from you? And first of all, tell us a little bit, you have podcasts, you have seminars ongoing. What keeps you busy now, and what's coming up in the near future?
Well, we just released the new book. It's called A Simple Guide to a Better Marriage, which is actually a compilation. For several years, I wrote an article on marriage for a national magazine here in America. And so I have taken those articles now, some of them, not all of them, and put them in a book, short chapters. In today's world and our culture, people like short chapters, okay? Dealing with a lot of different things. That's right. So that book has just been released. In fact, last week it was released, A Simple Guide to a Better Marriage. But I'm always thinking, of something else that might, and of course on the love languages, as you know, there's a whole, not just the parents of children, teenagers, there's a special edition for single adults and how that applies in their relationship with their parents, their siblings, their college roommates, and so forth. There's a special military edition on how to communicate love languages when you're deployed half a world away. There's one for parents of children that have disabilities. There's one for parents who have adopted children. There's one for blended families, step-parents and step-children. There's one for caregivers of dementia patients and how this can help. It's not that they keep the same love language with dementia, but the love languages gives you 5 different ways to try to tap into them emotionally, because the emotional part of the brain is still alive. And when you hit it, you get a response from them. My co-author is a medical doctor whose wife had the disease. And he said, when she was healthy, gifts was her number 5. I mean, gifts didn't mean a lot to her emotionally. But toward the end, when she could no longer talk, he said, I would give her an ice cream cone, and she would say, ooh, ooh, ooh. He said, I could live on that for 3 months. Just know it. I had touched her in a positive way. So, all of those had just grown out of, and many of those are books I co-authored with people who have more experience in those areas than I do. but they were already using the concept, and wanted to join together and help other people with it. So, but I'm always working on something. And as you said, I'm officially retired at this juncture, but that frees me up to speak more. So I'm leading Saturday marriage conferences and weeknights. I just got through with a whole week in Florida, doing what I call date nights for couples, where I talk about the love languages and also the apology languages. How do we apologize effectively? Because we have different ideas on what an apology is also. So anyway,
there is
I'm
a
busy.
quiz also on the website, 5lovelanguages.com. What's your apology language? That's interesting for those watching and listening. Dr. Chapman, how about events in Europe? Are we going to see you in this part of the world, or do you have other international engagements?
Well, I'm not writing it off. I've spoken in many, many countries in the past. I am older now.
Looking still great.
Well, I look great and I feel great. So I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just kind of trying to decide. After COVID, I haven't done a lot in other countries. I did go to England and did a tour in England, but I haven't been to a lot of countries since COVID. And I'm just trying to decide, is that the best investment, of my energy at this juncture. But I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I don't know.
All right. Do you have grandchildren?
I have two grandchildren. Both of them, one is 25 and one is 23. And my grandson is married. He married right after college, and they're living across country. They're living in Portland, Oregon, which is the other side of the country. I live in North Carolina on the east side. And my granddaughter is still single, and she's still living at home. And she's working for the governor's school in her state and helping them. She was a theater major, but her thing is behind the scenes, and she's working with gifted high school students when they're doing programs and plays and that sort of thing. Yeah.
How about your children and your family members and close people, your friends? Do they ask you for advice?
Along the way, they have, yes. Our daughter is now 60 years old, and she's a medical doctor and still very active. She delivers high-risk babies, and her husband's an internal medicine doctor. And our son is 56, and he has been a world traveler. He has lived 4 years in Prague in the Czech Republic, 2 years in Antwerp, Belgium, he and his wife, and now they're living in Austin, Texas. And they work primarily with fringe area cultures, that the people that are kind of on the extreme edges of culture, and not people that are leaders and all that sort of thing. They just have a heart for people who need help, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and that's what they do.
Dr. Chapman, what would you say are the top 5 issues that the couples that you've seen over the years with your decades of experience? And then what are some concrete solutions? Of course, we talked about the different languages and dialects and cultural impacts and so on. But is there any words of wisdom you can encapsulate if we have, on the one hand, the top 5 struggles that couples have, and especially this day and age filled with an abundance of visual images and apps and people being available, and perhaps the ethical questions and the morals of the modern society. So what do you say is, on the one hand, the issues that keep the couples struggling with, or on the verge of a divorce or breaking a relationship or deeply unsatisfied? And then on the one hand, some conclusions. How would you tackle this issue?
Well, I think one of them would be learning how to solve conflicts without arguing. Thousands of couples have never learned how to solve conflicts. And every couple has conflicts because we're human. We have different thoughts. We have different emotions. We have different histories. And every couple will have conflicts. But so many times, we both sense that we are right and we tend to convince the other person that you're wrong and I'm right. And I say, why would you do that? If you win an argument, they lost. It's no fun to live with a loser. So, the answer is learning to listen empathetically to another person. When they're talking, try to look at the world through their eyes and see their thoughts and their feelings. Try to understand it. You don't have to agree with it, but if you listen, with open ears, you can eventually say, well, I see what you're saying. I can see how that makes sense. And then they listen to you, and okay, now we understand each other. We're not condemning each other's thoughts. We're just saying, how can we solve the problem? And you spend your energy trying to solve the problem. Yeah, that's a huge area. I think another huge area is people have the tendency not to deal with their failures. They can, for example, lose their temper and yell and scream and say hateful things to their spouse, and then they don't talk for a few days. And then, life gets back to normal. But they don't ever go back and apologize for what they did. And that's why I think that book, The 5 Apology Languages, is being so helpful to people. Whenever we hurt the other person, we create an emotional block or barrier between us. And it doesn't go away with the passing of time. It only goes away when we apologize and then they choose to forgive. And then removes the barrier. Now we can go forward in our relationship. But what happens is people don't apologize, and these blocks, they just build walls between them because they have all these things, and after a while they're just thinking it's never going to work. It's hard to talk through a wall. So that whole thing of dealing with our failures is a huge issue. And I do think, yes, that technology, there's a lot of pluses about technology, but there's a lot of negatives about technology. And, I see couples in the restaurant. They're eating a meal, and they both have got their phone out answering their text messages. Why not talk to each other? Or they can be having a conversation, and one of their cell phones rings, and they answer their phone and start talking to the other person. And what happens? The spouse just says, well, I guess that conversation's over, so they leave the room. And we don't realize it, but what we're communicating is somebody out there is more important than you. Wow. That's a hard
Unless it's my child calling.
That's right. That's right.
Otherwise, I would not pick up.
Yeah, there are exceptions. Or if you're on call as a medical person, or yes, you have to answer the phone. And I just throw this in for children as well. If you're having a conversation with one of your children and your phone rings and you answer it, you're communicating to that child the same thing. Someone out there is more important than you. That's not what we need to be doing. Let it go to voicemail. You can answer them later out there. Okay. So I think those are some of the key issues I think that the couples wrestle with today. A lot of other things. There are some research projects that say money, disagreements over money, spending and saving is a major issue with couples. I have not found that as often as I found some other things, but certainly it is an area where we can easily have conflicts, to be sure.
Especially if the one person is a frugal person who likes to save, and the other person is a big spender and in debt, that I can see it very clearly being a huge problem for many families, especially with this economy. Dr. Gary Chapman, is there anything else on top of your mind that we haven't tackled in today's insightful, from my end, interview with you? Is it a message you want to absolutely mention that I didn't manage to ask you so far?
I think I would just highlight two things. I sometimes say these are the two essentials to a long-term healthy marriage. One is we have to meet each other's emotional need for love. And that's where the 5 love languages helps you do that. I would emphasize the attitude of love has to be there. The love languages gives you information on how to communicate love. But if you have a selfish attitude, I'm not going to do anything I don't want to do, you're not going to have a long-term healthy marriage.
When there's a will, there's a way, they say. So the wheel has to be proceeding before.
Right.
And then the great tools are there. There's your books, Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, the godfather of the 5 love languages, a great book to read. And I want to get my hands on the 5 love languages for children, but it's sold out in Finland. I have to order it online from your website, but I cannot find it in any Finnish bookstore. I cannot find it even in the library. The Finnish libraries have your books, many of your books, both in English also and in Finnish, and they're all out. They're all borrowed. Someone has them. They're constantly renewing their loans, so it's so hard to get a copy. But maybe I go to your website and make myself a late Christmas gift for myself.
Right.
So, Dr. Gary Chapman, it has been an honor to have you here with me, to have you spend some time with me and pick your brains. And thank you for the insights. I hope it was a time well spent for you as well.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed being with you. And I hope you will continue what you're doing in trying to help people, being a teacher, being a mother, and helping people beyond the family. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Keep up yourself the excellent work. I know you have a lot of still things, even though you said you're retired, but I think a man like you never really puts their buttocks down.
That's true. That's very true.
So I know that you have a lot of things still to offer, and you're already leaving a great legacy behind. Perhaps if I want to close with this one little question, what is this legacy you want to leave behind in this world? Let's say when an anthropologist of the future would analyze our society and our culture and stumbles across your work and your impact, do you feel that you have left a legacy? Does it interest you at all? Do you want to leave a legacy behind to be remembered as something?
Yes. I think that those who will find the greatest satisfaction in life are those who have sought and found how to serve others. And that's what I've sought to do with my life. I think those of us who are people of faith, I happen to be a Christian, we believe serving God. We serve God by serving others. We express our love to God by loving others. And so that's the legacy I hope to leave, is that people will see that that's been the focus of my life. And so I don't know how I could be any happier or feel any more satisfied than I do with my life. It's just been absolutely incredible. I'm deeply grateful to God for that.
And as you know, theologically as well and philosophically, love existed in Christianity in many theological systems, and from the Greek word agape, right? And
Yes.
from Plato, and actually in Finland, fun fact, on the 14th of February, where the world celebrates, or more the Americanized tradition of Valentine's Day, in Finland, we are celebrating Friendship Day. So it's more the platonic love that is being celebrated. So, Dr. Gary Chapman, thank you so much for all your insights, and find information, everybody out there tuning in and listening, at 5lovelanguages.com. Take the quizzes, subscribe for the newsletter, buy the books, the workbook, sit down with your children, with your partner, fix your relationships, strengthen them, and everything will be better. Thank you so much. Have a nice rest of the day, Dr. Chapman. Thank you for your great service and great insights. And it has been a great pleasure and honor to meet you today. And thank you.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. Dr. Gary Chapman was here with me today, and hopefully you get a chance to pick his brains and get insights from him, and find more about your love languages on the website. And I will be responding to your messages, anything you've left down in the comments. See you next week. Bye.